Just taking a quick look at this new VTOMAN FlashSpeed 600. So this is their newest model, and this one's got basically all the latest power station tech built into it. So, VTOMAN's been around for a while. They've been a budget brand, and that's kind of, really been the main reason people were buying them, right? I mean, they were getting them for super cheap. They didn't necessarily have the best specs or all the top features. But guess what? This new model, this FlashSpeed 600, it's basically got, everything you're probably looking for, right? I mean, everything you're looking for in a small portable power station that can still do, a lot of stuff, right? It's not limited in its capability. It can still power heating things, right? You can boil water with this. You can use electric hot plate. You can do all of your USB stuff, and it's got good charging specs too. And, again, we're talking about the real appeal with this unit. This is like a mid-size unit, so it can kind of do a little bit of everything, and yet it's only about a little over 16 pounds, right? And yes, this is with LFP batteries. And yes, this thing can be expanded as well, and it's got a really great expansion option on it too. And having the expansion option is obviously great, when you're using this thing at home, if the power's out or something like that. But, the real appeal with these kind of, portable sized units is, taking them on an adventure, right? Taking them camping. And, no, you're not going to be going for, a full hike carrying this stuff. But if you need to walk, a couple of minutes carrying this stuff, or just even loading up your car, having a unit this size, 16 pounds, it just makes it really easy. I mean, look at this. I mean, you can carry the power station and a 200-watt portable solar panel. You can carry both of them at the same time, basically. In fact, the solar panel is actually heavier than the power station. Of course, that's a 200-watt. But still, I mean, this is really the appeal with these units, right? And then if you had that expansion battery, you can just leave that at home, right? I mean, because that is going to be a bit heavier. So having it be truly portable is a great thing, but still, at the end of the day, it's got to have the specs, right? It's still got to be able to do the things you want. And this thing, you probably find this is going to be quite enough for what you really need. 600-watt inverter. So you might say, well, that sounds, a little limited. Well, you got to remember, too, the smaller the inverter, the more efficient it's going to be, right? It's not going to, the inverter itself is not going to use as much power. In most electronic devices, we're talking about computers, TVs, that kind of stuff, they don't use much power, AC, right? I mean, it's like 100 watts, 200 watts, right? So it's almost silly having a huge inverter, because a huge inverter really is only useful for cooking, heating, stuff like that. But guess what? This thing's got that power lifting feature, right? The voltage dropping feature, which enables you to, use resistive loads, right? I mean, you're not going to be using sophisticated equipment with this stuff, but you shouldn't need to do that anyways, right? As we said, heating, cooking, that kind of stuff, it's usually a resistive appliance anyways. So yes, the voltage will drop below 120 volts. To power these things, it basically trick them into thinking they're getting the power they want, even though the voltage has dropped way down, way down. But again, they're not voltage sensitive, right? So yeah, a kettle, sometimes even like cheap basic coffee makers that don't get something with, a fancy display on it, just a simple mechanical switch on off. Kettles, coffee makers, electric hot plates, you can do everything you want. You want to make coffee, you want to, cook something in a little skillet, you'd be able to do it with this thing. You just got to get the right appliance. And then at the end of the day, it's really going to be more efficient anyways, isn't it? Because you're not using a huge inverter for that stuff. And if you do want to use the inverter for smaller devices, like a computer, it's just better anyways too, isn't it? You don't want to be using like a 2,000-watt inverter to power your 100-watt computer, right? That'd be insanely wasteful, because that inverter is going to use a ton of power. So that's why having this setup, a smaller setup that's more efficient, doing the most with, smaller inverter, it's always better, isn't it? It's kind of what I love to talk about on this channel. There's so many videos on YouTube about these home backup systems with 3,000-watt inverters, 6,000-watt inverters. It's not practical, is it? I mean, you'd have to have 20, 30 kilowatt hours of batteries. You'd have to have a huge solar array in your backyard, right? And then you'd really have to have good weather too. You'd have to have sunshine, a lot of it too, right? With these small portable units, you can do your basic stuff. No, you're not going to be running your full-size refrigerator. You're not going to be running air conditioning. You're not going to be, doing your laundry. You're not going to be doing your laundry when the power's out. But guess what? You can still heat up food, right? If you had a 12-volt refrigerator, it's so much more efficient to have a 12-volt refrigerator than trying to power your full-size fridge. Yeah, you can run a 12-volt refrigerator off this thing, no problem. And when you're not using much power, it makes it so much easier to recharge it, right? Because even if you don't have solar, you recharge it like in your car, or just take it to your friend's house if they have power. You charge it back up in like an hour, right? I mean, so they say in fact, yeah, you can charge this thing to 80% in 60 minutes because it does have that bi-directional inverter, right? There's so many things. It's just, listen, it's just better to have something small, portable, and efficient. Trust me, it's just better to do it this way. You're going to save so much money too. Right? I mean, unless you're living like in an off-grid cabin. If you live in a civilization somewhere where you have power most of the time, this is the route you really want to go for, right? This is the route you want to go for. You don't want to be going down, I mean, yeah, especially if you live in like a populated area and let's say you do want to go the other route, with a huge home backup system with a huge solar array in your backyard. You also got to think about, what would happen if, the apocalypse struck? Are you going to be able to protect that, right? I mean, everyone's going to know that you have power. If you have a 20-foot solar array sticking up in your backyard, you're not going to hide that, right? So with a portable setup like this, you can throw that solar panel out there somewhere no one's even going to see it. Charge back up and bring it back into your house, right? Not to mention the fact that you can just take it with you on the go. Sometimes you got to just get up and go. You know what I mean? You can't be sticking around. So you can bring power with you. You're not going to bring a 30 kilowatt hour system with you if you have to leave your house, are you? Yeah, you can expand this, go from 499 watt hours to 2047, over 2 kilowatt hours. With one extra battery. This is the great thing. It's a new trend, right? This is a new trend in the industry to be able to combine a small portable power station with a larger extra battery, right? It's such a great idea because it doesn't really matter if the extra battery is quite heavy. Because if you just leave it, sitting at your house, you don't really have to move it. You can just tap into it when needed. So, and actually, as you can see, physically, it's not much larger. It's just that this is all batteries, inside here. This is just, it's very dense. It's just all LFP battery cells in here, right? There's literally nothing else. And that is kind of a bit of a bummer too with this extra battery. There's no, output, input ports. It just connects, to the power station. And, to get kind of, picky here, it does plug into the front of this thing, as you can see. So now, typically, I actually like having all the ports, including input ports, on the front of the power station. But for an expansion cable, yeah, it's kind of going to be in your way, isn't it? I think in that case, it's probably better to have it on the side or something like that. But, again, everything else is on the front. And typically, I do like that because you can access everything good and you can tuck this thing up against the wall or something, right? You don't have to worry about cables coming out the back. So, it's kind of pros and cons. But, hey, to be able to go up to, over 2 kilowatt hours with basically a 16-pound power station that, again, has that voltage reduction feature. They call it, by the way, V Beyond. Is that what they call it? I guess that's what they're calling it. Yeah, V Beyond. But yeah, it's that power lifting feature like Blue Eddy, like EcoFlow's X Boost that enables, remember, this is only a 600 watt inverter. So that's what it can power at the full normal voltage, 120 volts. If you want to power, like, let's say that this kettle is, let's just say it's 1100 watt kettle, right? You can actually power it with this power station because this thing can do appliances rated up to 1200 watts, right? So as long as, again, as long as it's a resistive appliance, resistive heating, that's it. Kettle, hot plate, basic coffee maker, you know, you're going to be able to heat that stuff up, right? So yeah, you just got to get the right appliance and you're going to be good. You're going to be good. You're going to be able to do all that stuff. And those things are nice too, because typically, you know, those appliances are the ones that you'll be able to take with you as well, right? You're not, you know, by the way, you can't use microwaves with this feature, and you're not taking your built-in microwave at your house camping with you anyways, are you? And another feature that, yeah, you know, you probably want is this UPS mode. And this one has it, you know, within 20 milliseconds. So this is kind of, you know, an average spec. So no, you're not going to get the top spec. You're not going to get, you know, 10 milliseconds or less in a budget brand like this. But still, within 20 milliseconds, it should work, right? It should work. Maybe there's a chance it doesn't work, but, you know, typically this is good enough. So yeah, if you got a bad storm coming or something and you're doing something important on your computer, just plug the computer into the power station and you can have the power station, while you do still have power from the grid, charging it, right? And with these UPS modes, it actually bypasses the battery. So you're not using the battery in this case, right? So you don't have to worry about, you know, shortening the life on the battery, especially if you're doing this a lot. And yeah, as I mentioned, you know, when you are charging with this thing, and yeah, as I mentioned, you know, when you are charging from grid power with this thing, you know, it's just a standard cord. There's no power brick, you know, it's just a standard cord that plugs right into the power station. And yeah, you know, basically in a little over an hour, you can completely charge this thing. And then the solar spec on this thing's actually pretty good as well. You know, the main thing is up to 50 volts, right? So that'll allow you to basically use almost any solar panel out there. Or you could put, you know, a couple of your standard, you know, 18 volt solar panels in series. Or you could just, you know, use, like they gave that example of just using a 200 watt portable folding panel. You know, you can do that as well. So up to 200 watts, that's the max input. And what's really nice is there's actually two inputs, but they're not separate. So they kind of, it's a shared input. It just, there's two different options for you to plug in. Okay, so there's the typical 7909, and then there's actually an Anderson port, which is really nice. I love Anderson, right? It's a nice solid connection. So, but yeah, the point is you can't have, you know, solar going into both of those at the same time. You choose one or the other. But it's nice, you know, depending on which kind of cables you've got, right? So yeah, just more flexibility. And then again, there's that, you know, just for the AC, that standard input. And then you get, yeah, everything else you get, as I mentioned, is everything on the front, the standard stuff. You get two of the AC outlets, 4 USB ports. Yes, 2 of them are 100 watt USB-Cs. You get the car socket, and they do throw in a little barrel port there too. So I love that. You know, so many power stations, they just give you the car socket, right? It's nice. Yeah, you know, it's nice to have another input, or excuse me, another output for DC there. So yeah, 2 12 volt DC outputs. And then, yeah, that extra battery port, you know, that we talked about is on the front. And then there's more, there's kind of some nice little extra stuff here. Yeah, the storage box on top, right? So you have this flat top design. So where the handles are built into, you know, the side of the units. And then there's space between the handles, right? There's space between the handles. So yeah, a nice box that you can put, you know, cables in, whatever, you know, whatever you need. You can just throw it up there and you can always have that with you. So I just love when these power stations have some kind of storage cubby, right? I mean, it just makes sense. And speaking of cables, they give you almost everything. So, you know, they give you this is for the car. Oops, this one's for the car. That's your standard AC, you know, power cable. And then they give you a couple of USB cables, which is interesting. You know, basically Type C to Type A, and then, you know, a double-ended Type C, which is nice. I guess it's nice that they include that stuff. Just note that they don't give you any kind of solar cable. So, you know, as I talked about it, it's, you know, it's real nice that there's 2 different input options, you know, the 7909 and the Anderson, but they don't give you either one of those cables. So now a lot of the portable solar panels, you know, they kind of give you a whole bunch of different, you know, cable ends on them, right? So chances are they have either an Anderson or 7909, but, you know, just make note of that. And then if you do get this expansion battery bundle, then of course you get, the cable to attach that battery as well. So they give you almost everything you need. Now, the last kind of thing that, you're probably wondering, this power station sounds like it has just about everything. But there is one key thing that I always like to talk about, right? That really no power station is complete if it doesn't have this. And it's an LED light, right? And this thing has it. And it's on the back. And it's actually really large panel light, right? So this is the type of light that's going to be able to light up a room, light up a tent, and not blind you, right? Because it's not on the front. So very nice. And in fact, 3 different brightness modes as well. So this is just, an excellent job on VTOMAN. As far as the specs they built into this thing, all the features it has, it's lightweight, portable, it's affordable. Yeah, and they kind of learned from all their previous attempts, right? And so now it's like we finally got the full package here, right? And they're saying this thing is built to last 10 years. So, and, another thing just to note here too is, this design, it's a nice looking design, right? I mean, it's not offensive. Yes, there's some yellow accents on it, but, not too outrageous. And it's just a very nice, clean design, right? I like the way that the outer part of the case kind of, they put some design detail in it. It kind of flows around the front of the unit, wraps around the bottom. There's some contrasting colors there, a little bit different, shades of gray. And, actually a cool detail is on the side of it where it says the FlashSpeed 600. That, that font is kind of like layered on top of, you can see that, like the texture. So when you look at it, it's kind of cool, It's kind of cool that it's not actually printed on just like a flat surface. So yeah, I could do without these yellow vent covers. I could do without this. I would kind of wish that was all black. I don't mind all the other yellow accents because it is a brand thing, right? That's their brand color. I just prefer having a power station that's a little bit more stealthy looking. But again, it's not too bad. Most of it is black. And we do get this, updated screen with actually a very large battery indicator and percentage display, right? So you could definitely read that from across the room from a distance, right? Without having to go, all the way up to the power station and squint at it. And then, if you do want all the extra little details, you can see their input, output, time remaining, yeah, it's kind of got everything. It's kind of got everything. So. And make sure, if you are considering this, make sure that if you're considering buying this on Amazon, I should say, make sure you get these coupons. This is a huge coupon, 47% off. Don't miss clicking that.